miteinander und alle zusammen, hello and welcome to another walkthrough video. Today we are gonna talk about Equinox One Dark Techno, and as the name already indicates, this is a sample pack dedicated to techno music, peak time techno, as well as raw deep techno. The sample pack is on 130 BPM produced. It contains 1.96 gigabytes of wave loops and one shots, as well as MIDI files. And this time I also give you a full preset bank for xFer Serum, which contains 110 presets for this soft synth, as well as 64 presets for Roland Cloud Juno 106. This is for the cloud version, not for the hardware version, which I have here as well. These synths are slightly different, even if the cloud version tries to emulate the original 106 hardware version, but the hardware version actually does not feature things like reverb, delay, distortion, phaser, and so on. And the hardware version also does not feature a filter for an envelope for filters. It just has an amp envelope. And that's why the presets are not compatible fully with the hardware version. You can load them into the hardware version. There is a way. If you want, I can also show you guys how this works, but they are not gonna accurately play there as intended for the software version. My name is Christian Hirt, by the way. I'm a music producer based out of Nashville currently. This is my little studio here. Welcome on board. And I would say we are just diving straight in. Let me open up the folder here. That's the sample pack. We are starting to go through folders. We are starting with the one shots of the wave loops, and we're gonna end with the presets for the synths. But I think it makes more sense if we first talk about one shots and then go into the wave loops. Yes, let's just start with the one shots. Kick drums first. I divided the kick drums into 5 subfolders. The idea is more or less the same as with Cyclopedia One. For those guys who are familiar with that filing system, you will find the same filing system idea also in this sample pack and in other sample packs to come. So first subfolder is the kick drums with rumbles. And as you can hear, these are kick drums where I produced the rumble already into the kick drum, or slightly after the kick drum. And these kick drums work best if you add them as is into your DAW, speed it up to 130 or faster BPM. And these kick drums are gonna already have some kind of rhythmic information built in and are gonna work even as kick bassline construction, so you don't need to add much more other bassline when you have one of these rumble kick drums in your project. All the kick drums in this sample pack come with the key information built in. That's something I did not do throughout the Cyclopedia package, but for this kind of music and for this kind of kick drums, it is essential to have the key information. The reason is that most of these kick drums are slightly saturated or distorted even, which is pressing out the tonal information of a sample. And this means you cannot really avoid to have these kick drums playing in another key than what they actually what the tonal information is of a key, of a kick. And now as well, I did not just determine this by plugin or something. I determined this by ear, by importing them into some kind of already existing track or loop, where I could really fast determine what is the right key. I'm sorry about that. For the kick drum, because if you have a plugin that determines a kick drum, you will not really get an accurate information sometimes, because many of these kick drums start in a certain key and then have a pitch information and end in a total different key, right? Even if it's not really hearable for the human ear, but a lot of kick drums are built that way by having pitch envelopes creating these kick drums. And as well, I built some of these kick drums on the same principle by running them through a pitch envelope and fast whether take the pitch slightly down or drastically take the pitch down, which a program might determine this as A, for example, in the key. In fact, the human ear would detect this as a D, for example, which is pretty far apart, right? So I made sure that I determined this by ear in a loop project environment, where I could really accurately say, yes, that's the key that a human ear would feel that this is working in that kind of key. So all kick drums have key informations. A second folder here are the kick drums with no rumbles. That's kick drums with a shorter decay and a much shorter release. Those kick drums work best if you, for example, use them and layer them with one of the rolling bassline loops that we are gonna talk about later. The fact just that these kick drums are shorter and they leave room for bass lines or other bass-based synth sounds to evolve and not to interfere with each other. So use these kick drums from that folder when you work with rolling bass lines, for example. You get the best result there. Then throughout the production of this sample pack, I figured out that it might be helpful to have separate folders for the kick drums that are really obviously distorted. And I'm not talking about a little bit of saturation. I'm really talking about the heavy distorted kick drums. You hear a difference to the more pure kind of kick drums. So I wanted to put them into a separate folder, so when you're really looking for obviously distorted kick drum, which in some cases it's exactly what you're looking for, then you get these folders here that are separated from the pure kick drums. So once a folder with rumbles and once a folder distorted kick drums with no rumbles. And for these distorted kick drums, it's even more important to have them play in the right key, because here the distortion effects or the saturation effects make the tonal information pop out really, really drastically. So it's even a main element. It might end up as a main element of your track. So you want to make sure that this is in the right key. I know we are talking about techno music, does not mean we should not have some kind of basic information when it comes to music theory and incorporate this into our productions. That's really something essential that I would recommend. I know there are a lot of examples that do not follow by these rules, but I would suggest to do it like this for the best result of your productions. Then we have a fifth folder when it comes to kick drums, and here we have kick constructions. That's basically nothing else than I'm giving you the kick drum ones with rumble. That's similar to those kick drums in the rumbles folders, but here I extract the kick drum only and the rumble only. So I make sure to let the rumble ring out, so you can, if you don't need the release tail, you can easily make it shorter or fade it out. But I wanted to make sure to give you the full information and not just cut off some release tail, which is also the idea of other sample packs that we are offering on soundsfat.com. So feel free to short them and narrow them down. Here for the rumbles, actually, I did not just use one of these typical rumble plugins like Kickzilla and stuff. I created these rumbles manually by using stock plugins from Logic here, or reverb plugins, delay plugins. I chase them through bus chains with various compressions, EQs. I enhanced bass lines. I cut off high frequencies. I did all sorts of crazy maneuvers to create these rumbles that just make them a little sound out of the ordinary, because putting a Kickzilla plugin on a kick drum, that's what you guys can do as well. So I thought I would take the extra mile here and create some rumbles that are a little bit out of the ordinary. So you get 9 different constructions here. One's just the kick drum and the rumble only. Second folder is the folder with the claps and snares. Techno music is not really known for having a lot of claps going, especially not on 2 and 4. It seems like lately that this is a no-go. Techno music, real techno music cannot have claps on 2 and 4. So I produced these claps to sound best as fill-ins, as effects, or sometimes even as percussive elements in your beat patterns. Then we have a folder for snares. As you see, there are just a few snares. Some typical saturated 909 snares and other founds. In the hi-hat section, on the other hand, we have a few more subfolders. Once we have the closed hi-hats folder, where we have a few closed hi-hats. We have the open hi-hats folder. And then I also created an open ring hi-hat folder, which is basically the idea of giving you hi-hats with a certain ring to it. Hi-hats that are even based more on the ring than on the noise information, which I came across quite a lot lately in techno productions. So when I did research, I was like, that might be a really cool folder and really helpful if you're producing modern techno music. You get the idea here. These are sometimes already kind of percussive elements, but can be used in hi-hats, in form of hi-hats, whether as closed hi-hats in rolling hi-hat patterns or as offbeat hi-hats. They work pretty well there. We have a folder with rights. Certain rights, I did not make them ring too long for the fact that I thought this might be rights that are best if you're using them whether as offbeat hats or as swing hats. So I kind of already pre-produced them for you. We have another folder with percussions, of course, shouldn't be missed. Most of these percussions have the key information baked in as well. And you hear some of these samples have some kind of room reverb already baked in. If you listen to this kind of techno music, you hear that they have sometimes this on purpose warehouse sound already to the initial production. So I wanted to give you options with certain room effects already produced into the sample, so you can easily just drag and drop and do not have to deal with processing too much. Low percussions, if you're familiar with the Cyclopedia One, you know that I like to extract the low percussions from the regular percussions, just for the fact that these kind of percussive elements are used, or you are looking for this kind of percussions when you build your beat pattern and you're looking for exactly these low percussive elements. Also here, that's everything when it comes to the one shots. Then we have a big folder of song starters, and that's basically where I just produced 16 bar tracks, so to speak, and give you all the single stems of each and every element in that loop, as well as the full loop. You get 12 song starters here. I can randomly play you a few. So you get the idea about that. You get 12 song starters, all on 130 BPM, 16 bars long. Some of the stems are even longer, like 32 bars. Every time I created an acid line, for example, or some kind of synth line, I made sure that I give you first 16 bars without upfiltering or filter process information, and then I give you 16 bars of upfiltering or some kind of rise up effect leading into some kind of peak that was really important for me to give you these stems, so you have the option of whether just using the first 16 bars, and you also have an upfiltering version that can work pretty well when you're working towards a drop in a build-up, for example. Track starters, pretty cool, check them out. Next folder that we're approaching is the bass loops folder that I divided into two subfolders. One's the rolling bass loops and one's the rumble bass loops. First, the rolling bass loops. Pretty simple concept here. You are all familiar with this 16th rolling bass loops. That's basically what I created here in all kinds of keys and all kinds of sounds. I once give you the full affected version, which contains sidechain information as well as, for example, delay information and other effects already. And then you get the full dry version if you want to add the sidechain of your choice or some effects of your choice, as well as the MIDI files. Even, I mean, all of you guys know how to create 16th note in your DAW, but never mind. I just put it here as bonus files, so you can easily drag and drop them if you need them to, for example, layer the initial sample loops, or if you want to create your own loops. Let me showcase a few of these loops. So even if these bass lines sound really wide and have a really wide stereo image sometimes, you can be sure that everything below 180 Hertz is mono. So that's something that I did for you, but I wanted to still keep the stereo image in the mid-range and the high range. The rumble bass loops are rumbles, basically 16 bars long rumbles that I created, the same as the kick drums with rumbles, but here just the rumbles. I created them in a techno track environment in my DAW, so you can be sure that they really work in this kind of field. So these are not just some random samples. Music loops is the next folder, which contains 4 subfolders. First subfolder are the arpeggios. Same here, you get the affected version first with all the reverb and delays and all the other effects that I baked in, as well as a dry version and all the MIDI files. Really cool hypnotic stuff here that works very well in this deep raw techno as well as this hypnotic techno music. Feel free to mess around with these loops here. And then I created a second arpeggio folder for texture arpeggios, which are not just synth-based arpeggios, but also like found sounds, sometimes even percussive sounds that I chased through an arpeggiator, for example, or sometimes it's modular sounds that I looped and created really interesting kind of textured arpeggio lines, which can sound as follows. So here these sounds are slightly different to the first folder of arpeggio sounds. Then I created some dub chords. Let me just import some of these loops here, because I also made sure that they have a nice, sorry about that, a nice rhythmic texture as well. So you get the idea here. You get these dub chords not only as fully affected, but also as dry versions, as well as the MIDI files. And you can see as well that I do not only feature the key, but also feature if it's, or determine if it's minor or major. And I also give you the information if it has a seventh or an added ninth to the chord. If this is helpful for you, you get this information as well. That's that for the dub chords. Next folder is the acid line folder. And when I did research about this sample pack and what we have to feature and what might be really helpful for you guys, then I could not ignore the fact that you guys seem to love acid lines. So I fired up my 303. I don't have the original 303, I wish though. But I fired up my boutique version and created acid lines. And I also wanted to have a different approach of creating these loops than just working with the internal sequencer of the TB303, which has this really characteristic kind of gives this characteristic kind of acid lines, but I wanted to come up with a different approach of creating these loops. So I created the loops by playing them on a keyboard. So I also make sure that I can give you the MIDIs and you can recreate them, for example, or you can layer them and not just have to deal with figuring out random patterns from the 303, and they also, in my opinion, sound more unique than what you would get if you just work with the sequencer, which is pretty cool, and you can do amazing things with it and get amazing results out of that sequencer. But in this case, I created them by playing them on a keyboard, and also created some of these acid lines by sampling some really generic kind of acid one-shots, and then resampling them in the DAW or in Contact, for example, and created them by adding delay or reverb and stuff to get really interesting results. So let me showcase you a few of these acid lines. So what you heard in the last example, and I tried to do it for all the 16 acid lines, they all are, yes, they all are 32 bars, which means the first 16 bars are or is the initial pattern that I produced, and the second 16 bars are up filtering effects, or sometimes I cranked up the reverbs or delays and other effects by just messing around with the automation to make sure that you have an option that can work as well in a build up and to create some kind of tension towards your drops or other sections of a track. So you always get one part 16 bars of the regular acid loop, and then you get the 16 bars that are really going crazy when it comes to up filtering and stuff. So check those out. Pretty cool. That's that when it comes to the music loops. The next folder are the pads and drones and atmospheres. Here I did work again with my flutes. I basically recorded a lot of random samples, or sometimes messed around with synthesizer information, or as I just said, played some flute samples and then processed them to create atmosphere loops. Sometimes I even narrowed it down to have a really short looping phrase or texture that can be used as a background texture in your track, for example, that just goes really subtle in the background of your track. So let me showcase these ideas real quick. You hear these are sometimes really drone based atmosphere samples that work best to just create tension, to create texture, to just spice up your sound design. And you find these kind of samples in the pads, drones, and atmospheres folder. Seventh folder is the effects folder. Here we have two different subfolders. First, the tonal and themes, and also something that I thought a lot about when I created this sample pack, or when we determined that we are going to create a techno sample pack. I figured out that a lot of nowadays techno tracks feature effects as a main theme, which means the track does not really feature a big melodic section or anything, but it is kind of having an information of an effect, sometimes a random effect or some kind of tonal effect that is the theme of the song or the track. And then I wanted to create certain tonal effects and themes, or effects that can be used as themes and can really make a track stand out just by adding this effect. So let me also showcase this before I talk too much about something that is best explained by just playing. So pretty cool effects here. Check them out. Mess with them in your tracks. There are certain effects here that can really make a difference when added to your track. And then I have a section with uplifters. These are basically 16 or 8 bars uplifters that can enhance your build up to get to a certain peak. I did not produce downlifters, crashes and stuff because I figured out that's just not what techno music is about. So I think you're gonna be fine with these two effects folders to make your track sound great. Okay, then we have a section that is dedicated to the presets of the Juno 106, the Roland Cloud Juno 106. I basically produced a full wave loop for each and every preset to showcase what the preset is all about, and just to give you an idea what you could do with that presets. So you get 64 presets here made with only the sounds of the Juno 106 presets, as well as the MIDI loops, obviously. So you can easily recreate these loops or just layer them. Okay, when we're about to approach the presets, let me just first show you actually how to install those presets. There is a guide in the sample pack in the README section actually, where you'll find detailed instructions of how to install the Roland Cloud presets and as well the xFer Serum presets. So, but let me show you one more time here. You would have to click on the patch button, this white button here. That's when this window pops up. Then you click on load and you basically have to find the bin folder, which is in our sample pack in the presets folder. Double click this and it's gonna show up here on your tab of presets and sound banks. And then you can basically just save and go out, and then it should appear here in your tab. As you can see here, we are working on a few other preset banks for you guys, which I'm still working on tweaking to make them sound really cool for you. But these banks are gonna come out later on this year as soon as I'm ready. Let's just dive into the Equinox One presets, which are finished and polished to a certain way that I like it, and I think you guys have fun to play and mess around with. Now, before I do something wrong and we lose audio, I have to click here. I'm still on, right? Yes, I'm still on. Yes, can we add this a little bit higher? Okay, I'm gonna just showcase. Let me make this a little louder, I guess, because I think my microphone is now louder than the music. I hope this balances more or less the audio from the voice and the audio from the synth. Okay, I will randomly showcase a few of these presets, not too many, but just to give you an idea what these presets are about. Oh, I have some. Let me take these effects off. I like these Brahms kind of basses that are having these rich bass lines, really saturated, but not too distorted. They can add really nice tension to especially this kind of techno music. So pretty huge fan of this kind of stuff. Mess with this. We got bells. Pretty cool for this kind of arpeggiated melody lines. I programmed quite a few of this arpeggio stuff. Check these out. There are more of that. A few pads. The sun. So I figured also out throughout the production of these preset banks, I figured out I can produce the more hypnotic, more raw, deep techno stuff better on the Juno 106, and the really heavy and nasty stuff is better when produced on the Serum. So you get here the quieter stuff, the presets that work best for hypnotic and deep techno, and the really hard stuff you get in the Serum presets. Cool, cool. Endless possibilities, guys. Hall and Paul. You can do whatever you like. There are a few kick drums as well, just for fun. Oh, I have some reverb on. You guys actually use this EOS from Audio Damage? I'm a really fan of this reverb, and you know why? I have no idea why, but it just fits. Sometimes I prefer this reverb over one of these really famous reverbs that everyone is using, and I pick this. And it's the version 1 actually, and there is an MK2 already as well, but I did not install the MK2. I prefer the first version. It's just, sometimes it's just like blows my mind how awesomely this reverb presets are programmed and how they perfectly fit with some of my tracks. So that's that little advertisement within the advertisement. All right. A few effects here as well, but yes, that's this. Now let's go over to the Serum presets. Also make this a little bit, even though those Serum presets are loud. So how do you install the Serum presets? Pretty simple as well. Click on menu here, show Serum preset folder, presets, user, and then you will find your user presets. And next is going to be the Cerberus 1000, which is a preset pack containing over 1,000 presets for Serum. I worked on this for almost a year now. Pretty cool. I tried to really program every single aspects of sound design and synth sounds. I tried to produce certain sounds. I created some sounds that probably have never been heard before. So that's gonna be next. I assume we're gonna be ready around mid to end of February with that preset pack. And yeah, I more or less have all the 1,000+ presets, but I'm really trying to make them really like detailed, and I also program all the macros as well as the mod wheel, so you have 5 different easy tweakable knobs to make the sound even sound crazier, or to easily adapt things like effects, release, cutoff, and so on. So it's gonna be a really cool thing. I will for sure also record a detailed walkthrough video for the Cerberus 1000, expected to be released by mid-end February. So, but we are still here in our Equinox One Dark Techno, and we want to showcase the Equinox sounds for Serum, the presets for Serum. 7 different folders. First folder are the bass lines. You get a lot of basses already with the rumbles. You get a lot of basses already with the rolling bass lines and the rumbles there. So these are mainly produced to kind of also add certain mid-range information, or use as lead synths as well. So let me showcase just a few. Here we are a little louder. Are we still on? We are still on. But it's a little loud. All right, what else do we have here? Here I already tried to create some rolling bass lines that basically have this 16th LFO information already programmed into the sound, so you can easily just press a key and let the synthesizer and my programming do the job. And then you get all these knobs here as well. You see they have some kind of really handy information and processing, upfiltering informations and stuff baked in. So you also get this no flutter button, which is basically just taking off the flutter effect, which means that I slightly detune the sound in a really random way and recreate or fake some kind of tape machine effect, right? But if you don't want that, just turn the no flutter button all the way to the right, and this is completely off. Let's check out some other sounds here. I programmed a few of these already pre-programmed arpeggio bass lines, which I think are more useful than the normal standard basses, or than this kind of already half lead sounds. that when it comes to the basses. Leads. So as I already said earlier, the Serum presets were the ones that I could go a little crazier and that are definitely programmed to work best in peak time techno and hard techno. You might even want to use them in hardcore and hard style productions and so on. Really cool and nasty stuff here. Maybe we will even win a prize for the sound bank that is able to destroy your ears the fastest. Maybe. If there is ever someone that gives an award for that. I'm just playing random stuff here, right? I mean, you guessed it, I also showcase random. Cool, cool. The legendary Hoover sound shouldn't be missed. I had to figure out how to really work with that pitch envelopes and stuff. I was familiar with the amplifier envelopes and with the filter envelopes, but the pitch envelopes, it's really cool what you can do if you really understand how they work and stuff. So I had to look into that to create some of these presets. Rotterdam. Yeah. Nice, that's that when it comes to the leads, steps. Some of these steps are actually not really tonal. I mean, they are tonal, but they have really strange combinations of different sounds incorporated. But still, for techno, I thought this is really cool and can be also used as a theme, for example, for some of these. Plugs and bells. forgive my average skills of playing the piano, but yes, I'm not really a trained piano player, so. Oh, we're approaching the Arpeggios. Really cool folder here. And I wanted to come up with some really crazy arpeggio stuff, and they turned out pretty cool. I also used them to create the song starters, and I'm actually coming back to these folders myself quite a lot lately when it comes to my own productions. These kind of arpeggios are not really standard arpeggios, but more like really cool rhythmic textures and fragments. I messed a lot with the LFOs here. As you can see, I went crazy. I also built myself a lot of user shapes throughout the past a few months to create all of these presets, and it was a really cool ride to create these presets. Some pretty cool arpeggio lines here. Definitely worth to check them out. We got 8 pads. Very hypnotic kind of stuff. And there are a bunch of percussions like closed hi-hats, ring hi-hats. And that's about it. That's the sample pack. I'm sorry about the clicks. I still didn't figure out how to get rid of these clicks when I have Serum open, but I'm sure I will manage that until the next video. For now, I would say thank you very much for checking out this walkthrough. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope this gave you a little bit of an inspiration how to use these samples and how to incorporate these samples in your music. Have fun with it and make it sound fat. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time. Bye bye.